Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm going to be covering the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific in this video. I'm sorry it's late, but anyway, let's get started. So, we have the Atlantic pulled up, and let's start with this area of interest here. It's disturbance 1, a 20% chance of formation through the next 5 days, and there could be subsequent gradual development, but there's nothing much to that. Let's start with Hurricane Danielle. For the current tropical system, it's 90 miles an hour. It's moving northeast at 7 miles an hour, and it's going to head towards Europe as a subtropical storm. They shouldn't get anything too bad, though. I know, guys, I believe I'm talking fast, but at a reasonable pace. Anyway, moving on. It's expected to stay 90 miles an hour and then weaken gradually, and then by 120 hours, 50 miles an hour. Now, it should be subtropical, or extratropical by hour 72. Also, if we look at the wind speed probabilities here, you see Europe isn't any of them. Earl, if we look at the cone, it's moving northwest at 3 miles an hour, mainly north. And Bermuda is now the cone, which we see. And it's expected to be a major hurricane by the end of the period, and it seems Bermuda might be affected. You see, by hour 120, it's 120 miles an hour, which would be a major hurricane, the first major hurricane of the Atlantic season this year. And usually this is when you start to see your first major hurricanes. As it says here, Earl could become the first major hurricane of the Atlantic season. If we go back to Outlook, and we're just going to redo this. So, the key message, sorry if I have to go out and back in for these counts. Anyway, key message for Tropical Storm Earl. Number 1, heavy rainfall from Earl is expected to lead to limited flash, urban, and small stream flooding. Impacts over the Leeward Islands, U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico today. Rapid rises on rivers and mudslides in areas of steep terrain are possible in Puerto Rico. Considerable flood impact cannot be ruled down in those areas that receive heavy rainfall totals. Number 2, Earl is forecast to remain, by the way, guys, sorry for any stuttering or times I stopped for a second. Anyway, 2, Earl is forecast to remain to the north of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico tonight, but gusty winds, especially in those squalls, remain possible on those islands, but probably not too much. Wind speed probability, of course, we see Danielle here. So a little bit of Puerto Rico, like a very small smidgen is in it. But I'm worried about Bermuda here as it is on the edge. It was on the 40 to 50 today, and it still is, but some of it's in the 50 to 60. So, yeah, and it's going to be pretty strong by it. It's going to be a major hurricane. So if Bermuda were to get affected, it would be by Thursday, 8 p.m. So a little more east than actually, no, it's not as east as expected, but its impacts are going to go a little more east than expected, though no threat to the East Coast, of course, not on any impacts. Now let's go to the Eastern Pacific, where we have K. And as we see, it's a clear threat to the Baja California third. Maybe a little bit of California, but probably not. Anyway, maximum sustained winds of 45 miles an hour. It's moving west-northwest at 14 miles an hour. And we see that it turns north. And now I will say this. Of course, the probabilities go a little down, but there's still some chances of 40 to 50, especially in the Baja California third. And for hurricane speed, force winds, there's definitely that possibility there too. For the key messages, number 1, although the center of K is expected to stay offshore, heavy rainfall could lead to localized flash flooding in portions of southwestern Mexico over the next few days. K is forecast to strengthen into a hurricane while it moves northward towards the Baja California Peninsula later this week. While the details of the long-range track and intensity forecast are uncertain, there is a risk of wind and rainfall impacts in the Baja California Peninsula during the middle and latter parts of the week. Interested there should closely monitor updates and forecast. A tropical storm or hurricane watches could be required tonight or on Monday. So yeah, if we look at the cone again, yep. And if we look at the discussion, it's expected to get up to 100 miles an hour. If they were to get tropical storm force winds, the most likely times, they would start to get them the Baja California third. I'm not expecting Mexico too, but the Baja California third around Wednesday at 8 a.m. And if California were to get them, they're not on here, thank goodness. But they would be leaving around Thursday, 8 p.m. on the Baja California 3rd. So, yeah. Sorry about that little cough there. Anyway, moving on from that, let's go to Danielle here, and let's look at the model intensity guidance. It's currently a Cat 1. Some models show it strengthening a little bit more, but then most show it staying as it is right now, and then weakening down to a tropical storm by day 5. And spaghetti models are overall with the National Hurricane Center track of it moving northeast. Anyway, sorry about the cough again, but let's go to Earl. Most models now show a model intensity guidance models show it going up to a Cat 3, and a good chunk even show it going into a Cat 4, close to a Cat 5. A considerable support of it just going north and then northeast. One shows it going to Bermuda directly, but I don't think that will happen. Not focusing on more. I'll focus on that in a separate video. Anyway, Xavier is dead. Like, look how bad this is. Not any circulation at all, so we're not going to look at that. Most of the model intensity guidance shows up to a Cat 2, but considerable amount, no, I'm just kidding, but 2 show it up to a Cat 3, considerable amount show it to a Cat 2 or a weak, the strong Cat 1. Cat means category, if you didn't know. Sorry for any stuttering, by the way, but most spaghetti models show it getting close to the Baja California 3rd and then going out to sea, turning out to sea. California should stay unhinged. Anyway, if we go to the GFS, we're going to go to 18V here, and let's look at let's go to North Atlantic first. We see Earl here. It goes down to 950, affecting Bermuda a bit, but not much, and then going out to sea. And Danielle is currently 978, but it turns away from Europe at the last second. If we look at the 10-meter winds, we're seeing around up to Category 3 force on Earl and Category 1 on Danielle. Earl is shown slamming into Northern Ireland, though, on the GFS. For 850 MB, we're seeing wind gusts, a little bit on Bermuda and wind gusts, and these systems going up to around 110 miles an hour. And there's a little bit on Europe, but I wouldn't say anything on that. 110 mile per hour wind gusts on Earl, potentially on the GFS at the very lowest, and at the weaker parts of the eye wall, but in the strongest parts of the eye wall, up to 130, 140 mile per hour wind gusts possible. Again, sorry for the stuttering. Danielle may be Category 2 wind gusts. Significant wave period. Waves definitely for Bermuda. Not. There is some higher waves for the Northeast, but probably unrelated. Danielle shows giving some waves to Europe, and then so does Earl, the very latter part of its life. If we go to the Eastern Pacific, and we go to significant wave height, we see that considerable waves for the Baja California 3rd. If we look at the MSLP 10-meter winds, we do see winds of hurricane force on the outer edges and tropical storm force for most of the Baja California 3rd with 850 MB winds, aka wind gusts of potentially up to Category 2, with total accumulated precip of on the north central edges of it, potentially up to 16 inches in isolated amounts, widespread 7 and 6 inches, as well as widespread 4 to 6 inches. If we go to the HWRF, and we are going to go to Danielle, we see 958 and continues to weaken, but it loses millibars a bit, but that's because it's going more north. if we look at for Earl, we do see it goes down to 943 millibars with sustained winds of 111 knots to around 135 miles an hour, 130. And 4K, we go back, let's go. It shows it getting pretty close. Mainly rain bands down to 969, 968, possibly 967. If we look at the ocean analysis and look at the Nino 3.4 index, we're officially below -1. So, of course, it's much more steady here. We see it was around just below -5, -0.5 in early June. Then it went all the way to -0.3, almost -0.2. Then it started to go down again, and we were down to below -0.5. Then we got down to -0.9. It was about to go to -1, but it didn't. It went up right before it did, and it got to -0.7. But now it went down again, and we're down to -1.011. If we look at the northern Atlantic, we see 30 degrees Celsius near the Bahamas, 31 degrees Celsius for much of the Gulf, 29 degrees and some 30 degrees for the Caribbean, and for much of the open Atlantic, 29 degrees and 28 degrees Celsius. In the Eastern Pacific, we're seeing 30 degrees, maybe 31 degrees Celsius, while it's widespread 29 degrees Celsius. Water is definitely favorable for hurricanes in terms of sea surface temperatures and a clear La Nina, as you can see here. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a great night, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Good night, guys.